Good morning, Tobago, and welcome back to the Tobago Updates Youth Morning Show. Juvenile delinquency is an issue that has been facing our communities for quite some time now. And this morning we have on set with us Miss Mauriska Thomas. She's no stranger to us here at Tobago Updates, and she's going to be talking to us a little bit about that, giving us her professional perspective rather on juvenile delinquency and the rise in crime among young persons in Tobago. Good morning, Mauriska.
Good morning, Kayleigh. Thank you for having me here.
No problem at all. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay, so within my scope of work, I deal with individuals who are having issues in finding a conclusion to a situation. So I have to facilitate the conversation to lead to conflict resolution. I also assist in training persons for things like anger management and stress management.
Okay, so we're talking about the rise in school violence. So when we talk about juvenile delinquency in Trinidad and Tobago, to be specific, I could remember clearly when schools reopened right after the pandemic, we had a lot of reports of violence within the school space. So can you comment on the effect of the pandemic? Do you believe that the pandemic would have directly affected that type of behavior?
Most definitely, because a lot of students who are at home not being able to interact with friends, not being able to go to different places that they would normally be able to de-stress. So think about yourself. If you are in a confined space, at some point in time, you may want to scream, you may want to shout, you may get agitated, right? So that was pretty much the situation for a lot of students, not just students, but even adults. And if it is that many adults were unable to manage a situation like that, you could just imagine students. They are younger, they are inexperienced. So for students, they would have needed a lot of assistance in helping them to get out of a situation like that.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the other factors that would contribute to juvenile delinquency apart from the pandemic, because we know that this is an issue that we would have been facing since way before the pandemic.
Right.
So what are some of the other factors you would say contributes to juvenile delinquency?
Well, one, we have parenting. I know sometimes many persons may not want to hear that. It might be controversial for some, but parenting is where it starts. You're at home the majority of the time. Your parent is the person that influences you, the community that you have around you. And the community doesn't necessarily mean where you live only, but the friends that you have, what influences your decision, the type of music you listen to, the places you choose to go. Those things are your community. Now, how those things impact you is dependent on how you interact. Yeah?
Okay, I think that's really good that you would have mentioned that, because that was actually my next question. I was going to ask you about parental influence and the fact that the statistics now in terms of juvenile delinquency, it's higher than long ago. Do you think that is because of the difference in the parenting styles? Because we know we now have modern parenting.
Right.
I'm pretty sure in your job scope that you would see, you have parents doing things a little differently. They cussing out the corporal punishment. They're doing a little bit more talking and conversation. How do you think that changes anything?
I think now with, as you said, modern parenting, a lot of the values that we used to have before, they aren't taken as seriously. So where children in olden days would have never thought to talk back to their parents because they would have been some form of consequence. Now, children do it without even thinking. Yeah, and many times there are no consequences for bad behavior. So you would do it if it's allowed. Yeah, so that's, yeah.
Okay, wonderful. And recently at a symposium titled Violence as a Public Health Issue, the Prime Minister for St. Vincent, Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves, he would have stated that poverty as an excuse for crime is a very narrow argument.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that statement?
I completely agree with him because choosing to engage in any activity is just, like I said, a choice. You're choosing to do it. You don't have to engage in crime. You can choose to talk to someone. You can choose to ask a question. There are different avenues that you could choose to go, well, different roads you can choose to walk when it is that a situation presents itself. Crime is not the only way, and crime does not pay. So there are, well, in our country, we have many different grants available. I think with that is just about education. If persons don't know that these things exist, when they need help, they aren't able to access it. So if it is that these things are advertised more, then persons would know, hey, right now I am, let's say, a parent not being able to afford their children's school clothes. There is a grant that will afford parents the opportunity to get school uniforms for their children, among many other things. But if they don't know about it, they will not be able to access it.
Okay, and you have stated that crime does not pay. But I think the reality is, for most of these young persons involved in crime, their mindset is that crime definitely does pay because they receive some type of benefit, some type of income from it, some type of sustenance from crime. So you also spoke about the grants and things being available and us having to educate persons about it. I know that we have a lot of groups, youth groups in Tobago, a lot of programs for young persons, right? But many a times you hear that these things are advertised to a particular type of young persons. So this type of young persons I would call the highfalutin young persons. You have the young professionals, you know, they have all the titles, the public speaking and all like that. But then you have the persons on the block. How do we advertise these programs? How do we get everybody involved? How are we inclusive? And you know, we don't just advertise or we don't just have a program designated to the young persons on the block. How do we get everybody together without making anybody feel alienated?
In situations like that, I think instead of just doing media advertising, because if you're outside, it's not necessarily that if you see an ad pass for something that you would choose to get up, move from the block and go. If someone comes to you and they explain it to you, not just a flyer, not just showing you a flyer, but they explain to you the process. This is how it's going to be. This is what you can gain. Can you come at least for a day, see what it's like? The person may express that they may feel uncomfortable being in a situation like that. But explain to them the benefits, the possible benefits of their attendance, and assure them that if you come, it doesn't matter who is there, you are welcomed. That it might be more of an invitation to them to know that someone specific there is waiting for them to come.
I think that's very important. And not only that, but I mean, as you would have said, you know, actually going to them and explaining, showing them how to do certain things. Because I can imagine for the grants, there are a lot of things that probably have to sign up information that you have to get, documents that you need to get copied. And I know recently when we would have interviewed the president for the Tobago Youth Council, he said that one of the initiatives that they wish to embark on is actually showing persons how to write up a form.
Right.
Because I mean, realistically, a lot of persons, they don't know how to insert certain information, what information is needed, how to access information. So I think that's something that is very important that we need to get in the Tobago space for young persons in Trinidad and Tobago, young persons in general, so that they know how to access information, so that they can be able to, you know, have the best for themselves in that regard.
In addition to that, I'd like to add, even though young persons have the access to school, we still know that many persons are illiterate. They haven't gone through the process. So this might also be a reason why we have many juvenile delinquents. So instead of accessing the help for them to be able to function, what they do is that they may be disruptive, or they may just say, no, I'm not coming. That way it doesn't expose that part of them.
Okay, great. And recently in the media, we've also heard that the commissioner of police, she would have rated her performance so far. And she said that she has been performing excellent, right?
Right.
In spite of what the critics and the naysayers may say, she said that she has been performing excellent. How would you rate her performance, or how can you comment on her performance in the point of view of juvenile delinquency? In that aspect, how can you comment on her performance?
I would say that from her end, she can only do what's humanly possible from her end. She can't enter every household to parent every child. So that aspect of it, in terms of children being delinquent, is, to me, I would really bring it back to the parents, because we can have the police force out, you can have the army, we can have everybody, but these people are not in the household training the children every day, telling them, do this, don't do that, we are encouraging you here, there, that kind of thing. Your parent is the one who is, your parent or guardian is the one who will be constantly instilling these messages on a daily basis. So these are the people that we need to look at. In terms of Mrs. Erla's performance, like I said, she can only do as much as she can. And we can't expect her to overextend herself for the fact that another aspect of the child rearing process is challenging for some.
Okay, and she would have also commented some time ago that the only way for us to alleviate crime within our society is through divine intervention from the Holy Spirit. From your professional point of view, how effective would you say spirituality is in terms of affecting juvenile delinquency?
I would say, well, they saying train up a child in the way that they should go, so that when they grow up, they won't depart from it. It's a true and honest statement, you know. But at the same time, even though yes, we have the lessons that we would have learned, and we know consciously, oh, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't steal this, I shouldn't go there. Sometimes the circumstances may make you think otherwise, but the fact that at a later point in time you can say, hey, I really wasn't supposed to do this, I can actually say sorry. That's actually a real thing. But instead of, we can't just pray only. You have to act, you know? So we have to put measures out there, put persons who have the information and knowledge to be able to train these young people on the things that they should and they shouldn't do, and to assist them in the process.
Okay, wonderful. And in October of last year, the Jamaica Broadcasting Regulator, they banned music and TV broadcasting that promotes violence, guns, drugs, anything like that. The government said that the ban was in an effort to cut back on material that would give the wrong impression that criminality is an accepted feature of Jamaican culture and society. No, there's a lot to unpack here. So let's start by discussing the effect of music and media on juvenile delinquency.
So like I said earlier, the community you have is what influences you. So if the music you have is one that promotes violence to the highest level, and like some songs say that we aren't having any new friends and things of the sort, right? Messages like that, they tend, even though you may say, I'm strong, I can listen to it, it's just a beat. Over time, the message tends to penetrate your brain. So it's like a situation may happen and you may just resort to that. You with yourself, after you sit down and you think about it, you may say, but this is not me. Why am I behaving like that? Not knowing that it's the environment that you surrounded yourself with, in this case, the music, is giving you a message and you are subconsciously reacting to it. It may not happen with everybody, but some people are more susceptible than others.
Okay. And I mean, this is something that probably would have been affecting us from way back when. I don't think that this has anything to do with technology or anything like that, because we've had persons listening to music for ages. So this is something that would have definitely been affecting us for a very long time. After the ban, actually, in Jamaica, the police would have reported a 22% decline in major crimes as of March 2023. And that is compared to the same corresponding time period of last year. So do you think that if we implement something very similar in Trinidad and Tobago, how effective do you think it would be? Because I mean, in Jamaica, we have dancehall, but over here we have Trinidad. And if you listen to some of those Trinidad songs, it's quite influential when you hear what they're asking these young persons to do. I mean, these young persons who listening to this Trinidad music. How effective do you think a similar ban would be in Trinidad and Tobago?
I think it would be overwhelmingly effective because the messages will be different. In the song probably wouldn't say don't do this or don't do that, but just not having these messages sent to you every day, not receiving these messages every day, it will eventually fall off. And you take up another message, I don't know, probably from a different type of genre or different types of songs saying different things.
Okay, and I'm not certain if the ban in Jamaica, if it was just for public spaces only. But I think we need to remember that even if you're not having the music played in public spaces, persons still have access to their personal phones. They could still go on YouTube or wherever they access their music and still listen to this very influential music. How do you think parents play a role in that in terms of affecting what children listen to? And I mean, it's not children alone because it's young persons as well. And really and truly, parents can't really tell younger persons, well, what exactly to listen to on their phones. Because half of the times they don't know because the phones have locks and all that kind of thing. So they have no idea what the child has access to.
In cases like that, I would say parents need to speak with their children. Speak with their children. Lots of children tend to grow up on their own. They're not having necessary conversations with their parents for their parents to say, I approve of this, I don't approve of that. Many of them feel like they're on their own. So if they have parental influence in the things that they do, yes, some children go against, but the messages are still there. When it says push to come to shove, the message is still there. So you know, if my mommy, but if I'm in a particular situation, you could say to yourself, my I approve of this. I probably should not do this because she spoke to me continuously. So you know what is acceptable and what is not. So parents do have a part to play. You know, they, even though some of them might choose to check the phone and some of them may choose to have the conversation, some do go astray. But regardless, parents still need to stay there and ride it through with their children. It's your child. You need to do the most, the best. Everything is your child.
Okay, and in terms of the aspect of the government, how much do you think is being done to alleviate juvenile delinquency? And what else do you think can be done? What can you suggest?
Right now, I know that the Ministry of Social Development has a program called the Interdisciplinary Child Development Center, where it is that they assist parents in helping their child, right? So they do workshops and so on for parents to assist their children. There's also the Division of Social Protection, where parents can also go to receive assistance for children who they believe are not going down the correct way. I would want parents to use these routes instead of having to go straight to the court or to involve the police in situations, because I think if you go the route of police and court, it's more militarization process and not a nurturing process. It's not where we help children to understand, here what, if we, I don't know, if we continue being delinquent in your schoolwork or your attitude, things like that, this is the direction that your life may go, right? So we should do more of, instead of militarizing, and more teaching, more nurturing the children so that they understand your actions have consequences, that kind of way.
Okay, so thank you so much for coming and chatting with us this morning. I think it was a very interesting interview. You know, we've been seeing it happening in the Tobago space. It's very prevalent right now. And I think that he gave some very excellent suggestions for parents and for young persons in terms of some of the roads that we can take to alleviate this situation. So thank you again. And viewers, we'll be taking a very short break. And when we come back, we'll be talking with the Ball Blasters Academy. So remember to share the live, share the live, share the live.